The funeral home smelled like lilies and lies. I stood beside Harold's casket, watching our son Logan fidget with his phone while the pastor droned on about eternal rest. 47 years of marriage, and Logan couldn't even put his device away for 20 minutes. My daughter-in-law Debbie hadn't looked at me once, her manicured fingers constantly smoothing her black designer dress, the one that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. "Beautiful service, Mom," Logan said afterward, his voice flat as week-old soda. He glanced at Debbie, who gave him that look, the one I'd learned to recognize over the past 5 years. The look that said, "Hurry up, get this over with." The last mourner filed out, leaving us alone in the parlor's suffocating silence. My hands trembled as I folded the guest book, each signature a reminder of the life Harold and I had built together. 47 years of shared dreams, scraped-together savings, and the small victories that made a marriage worth fighting for. "We need to talk," Logan said, straightening his tie. At 32, he looked like his father, but carried himself with none of Harold's warmth. "About your living situation." My stomach clenched. "Logan, your father's been gone less than 6 hours, which is exactly why we need to discuss this now." Debbie finally spoke, her voice crisp as winter air. "The house is too much for you, Audrey. You can't maintain it alone." Audrey. She'd never called me Mom, not once in 8 years of marriage to my son. Always Audrey, like I was some stranger she'd rather not acknowledge. "I've lived in that house for 30 years, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside my chest. "Your father and I—" "Dad's gone." Logan's words hit like a slap. "The mortgage is underwater, the roof needs work, and you're 71 years old. Be realistic." Realistic. The word tasted bitter in my mouth, like all those times Harold had worked double shifts to pay for Logan's college, or when we'd emptied our savings account to help him buy his first house. Realistic had meant sacrificing our own dreams so our son could chase his. "I have options," I said, though my voice sounded smaller than I intended. Debbie laughed, a sharp, mirthless sound. "Like what? You've got maybe 2,000 in checking, Mom's old jewelry that's worth nothing, and a house that's falling apart. Face facts." She was wrong about the jewelry, but I wasn't about to correct her. My mother's wedding ring wasn't just sentiment. It was a 2-carat diamond that had belonged to my grandmother. Harold had insisted we never sell it, no matter how tight money got. "For emergencies," he'd said. "Real emergencies." "I could get a job," I said, hating how desperate I sounded. Logan scoffed. "Doing what? You haven't worked in 40 years. Who's going to hire a 71-year-old with no recent experience?" The cruelty in his voice made my chest ache. This wasn't the boy I'd raised. The one who used to crawl into my lap after nightmares, who'd cried when he'd accidentally stepped on a butterfly. This was a stranger wearing my son's face. "I've found a place," Debbie said, pulling out her phone. "Sunset Manor. It's a lovely facility. A nursing home." The words fell from my lips like stones. "An assisted living community," Logan corrected, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "They have activities, meals provided, medical care on site. It's perfect for someone in your situation." Someone in your situation. Not his mother. Not the woman who'd sat by his bedside through pneumonia and broken bones, who'd sewn his Halloween costumes by hand because we couldn't afford store-bought. Someone in my situation. "I'm not an invalid," I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "I don't need assistance." "You will." Debbie's finger swiped across her phone screen. "And this way, you'll already be settled when the time comes. The waiting list is usually months long, but they have an opening next week." Next week? They'd already decided, already made arrangements. While I'd been grieving my husband, they'd been planning my disposal. "The house needs to be sold," Logan continued, his businessman voice in full effect. "The proceeds will cover the facility costs for about 18 months. After that?" He shrugged. "After that, I'd be their problem." The unspoken words hung between us like a death sentence. "I need time to think," I said. "Time's a luxury you can't afford," Debbie replied. "The facility needs an answer by Friday." Friday, 3 days from now. 47 years of marriage, 30 years in the same house, and I had 3 days to decide whether to surrender my entire life to strangers. "Logan," I said, reaching for his hand. This is your childhood home. All your memories. He pulled away. Are just that. Memories. I have my own house now, my own life. I can't be responsible for maintaining two properties. The word responsible echoed in my head, as if I were a burden, a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. What about the photo albums? Your father's tools? The garden he spent years cultivating? We'll take what we want, Debbie said. The rest can be donated or thrown away. Thrown away. Like 47 years of accumulated love meant nothing. Like the carefully tended roses Harold had planted for our anniversary, the workbench where he'd taught Logan to build birdhouses, the kitchen where I'd cooked 10,000 meals with joy, all of it, garbage. I should go, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We'll drive you, Logan offered, but it felt like an obligation, not kindness. No. I stood straighter, drawing on reserves of strength I didn't know I still possessed. I need to walk, to think. Audrey, it's getting dark. I've been walking these streets for 71 years. I cut Debbie off. I think I can manage another mile. I left them standing in the funeral parlor, their whispered conversations following me into the October evening. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and dying leaves. Halloween decorations adorned the houses I passed, skeletons and ghosts, a macabre celebration of death that seemed fitting for the day I'd buried my husband and learned my son was ready to bury me too. My feet carried me through the neighborhood Harold and I had called home for 3 decades. Mrs. Patterson's house, where we'd borrowed cups of sugar and shared gossip over the fence. The Johnsons' place, where Harold had helped repair storm damage without being asked. The corner store where we'd bought penny candy for Logan when he was small, back when $1 could buy happiness. All of it would be gone. Sold to pay for a room in a facility where I'd wait to die among strangers. I stopped at the corner of Maple and 3rd, where Harold had proposed 48 years ago. The oak tree we'd carved our initials into had been cut down years ago, replaced by a modern street lamp, but I could still picture that young man on his knee, his eyes bright with dreams we'd thought would last forever. My hand found the weight in my coat pocket, the business card my mother had given me 20 years ago, before her mind began to fade. For emergencies, she'd whispered, pressing it into my palm. Real emergencies. I'd never used it, never needed to. Harold and I had always found a way to make do, to scrape by, to survive whatever life threw at us. But Harold was gone, and my son, my own flesh and blood, was treating me like a problem to be solved. The card was worn soft from years in my jewelry box, the edges frayed, but the phone number still legible. Frank Regula, private investigator. Discreet inquiries, background checks, asset recovery. My mother had hired him once, when her brother had tried to cheat her out of their father's estate. Frank had been thorough, creative, and absolutely ruthless in pursuing what was rightfully hers. Sometimes, Audrey, my mother had said after it was over, you have to fight for what's yours. Even family, especially family. I pulled out my phone. The basic model Logan had insisted was appropriate for someone my age, and dialed before I could lose my nerve. Regula Investigations, a gravelly voice answered. This is Audrey Brown, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I think I need your help. There was a pause. Martha Brown, daughter? Yes. I'm sorry for your loss. I heard about Harold. Of course he had. In a town this size, news traveled fast. I wondered what else he'd heard. What other whispers had reached his ears? Thank you, I said. Mr. Regula, I need to know about my son's finances. His business, his assets, his debts, everything. Another pause. That's an interesting request. Any particular reason? I thought about Logan's expensive suit, Debbie's designer dress, the way they'd spoken about my house like it was already sold, about how quickly they'd found a nursing home with an opening, how eager they were to get me settled. Call it maternal instinct, I said. How soon can we meet? Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Same office. Your mother knew the address. The line went dead, leaving me standing under the streetlight with my heart pounding. For the first time since Harold's diagnosis 6 months ago, I felt something other than grief and fear. I felt dangerous. The walk home seemed shorter, my steps lighter despite the weight of what I'd just set in motion. The house welcomed me with familiar creaks and shadows, Harold's presence still lingering in every corner. I made tea in the kitchen where we'd shared 47 years of conversations, where he'd held me as I cried over miscarriages and celebrated Logan's first steps. Logan, who now wanted to erase it all. I sat at the kitchen table, my mother's ring heavy on my finger, and waited for tomorrow. Because sometimes, as my mother had taught me, you had to fight for what was yours, even if it meant fighting your own child. Frank Regula's office hadn't changed in 20 years. The same worn leather chairs, the same filing cabinets that had seen better decades, the same man behind the desk, though his hair had gone completely white and deep lines mapped his weathered face. He poured coffee from a thermos that looked older than Logan. "Your mother was a force of nature," he said, settling into his chair. "Smartest woman I ever worked for. You have her eyes. And her temper, apparently." I accepted the coffee, grateful for something to do with my hands. "I need to know what my son is hiding." Frank pulled out a yellow legal pad, his pen poised. "Tell me everything. Start with yesterday." I recounted the funeral, the conversation about Sunset Manor, the casual cruelty in their voices. Frank took notes, occasionally asking questions that cut straight to the heart of things. When had Logan's attitude toward money changed? What kind of business did he run? How long had Debbie been pushing for me to downsize? She's been at it for 2 years, I realized as I spoke. Little comments about the house being too much work, about my age, about how I'd be happier somewhere with more structure. The pattern became clear as I voiced it. "She's been softening me up." "Smart woman," Frank said, without a trace of admiration. "What about Logan's business? Tell me about that." "Real estate development. He started small, flipping houses, buying rental properties. But in the last few years, he's been talking about bigger projects, commercial developments, strip malls." I paused, remembering conversations I'd barely paid attention to. "He's been traveling more. Meeting with investors," he said. Frank's pen scratched across the paper. "Any money troubles you know about?" "No, just the opposite. New cars, expensive vacations, that house in Riverside Heights." I frowned. Though now that I think about it, Harold always said something felt off about Logan's success. He was doing too well too fast. Harold was a smart man too. Frank set down his pen. "I'll need a few days to dig into this. Financial records, property holdings, business partnerships. But I want to be clear about something, Audrey. Once I start pulling threads, I might unravel things you'd rather not know. My son wants to put me in a nursing home so he can sell my house," I said. "I'm not sure there's much left to preserve." Frank studied me for a long moment. "Your mother said something similar when she hired me. I've already lost my brother," she said. "I'm not about to lose my dignity, too." I remembered that time. Uncle Richard's betrayal. The family gathering where he'd announced he was selling their father's farm without consulting her. She'd been quieter afterward, more calculating, more dangerous. "How long?" I asked. "Give me until Friday." "Same day they want your answer about the nursing home. That's not a coincidence." "No," Frank agreed. "It's not." I left his office with instructions to act normal, to not tip my hand. But normal felt impossible when Logan called that afternoon. "I've been thinking about our conversation," he said without preamble. "And I want to apologize. I was too blunt yesterday." Too blunt. As if the problem was his delivery, not his message. "I'm still processing," I said carefully. "Of course. But Mom, I want you to understand this comes from a place of love. Debbie and I, we worry about you. Living alone at your age, it's not safe. At your age." The phrase was becoming a refrain, a justification for every indignity they wanted to heap on me. "I fell down the stairs last month," I lied, testing a theory. "Nothing serious, just a bruise." "You fell?" Logan's voice sharpened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd overreact." "Mom, this proves my point. What if you'd been seriously hurt? What if no one found you for days?" The concern in his voice sounded genuine, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of the old warmth. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this really was about love, not money. I've been thinking about Sunset Manor, I said. Maybe I should tour it before deciding. That's a great idea. I'll call tomorrow and set something up. No need. I'll handle it myself. A pause. Mom, let me help. I know the director there, James Foster. We've done business together. Business together. The words sent a chill through me. What kind of business? Construction contracts. I renovated their main building last year. They're good people, Mom. They'll take excellent care of you. After we hung up, I sat in Harold's chair, staring at the phone. Logan had done construction work for Sunset Manor. He knew the director personally. The facility had a mysterious opening just when they needed one. I called Sunset Manor myself. "We're so sorry for your loss," the receptionist said when I gave my name. "Mr. Smith was just telling us about you. Such a tragedy to lose a spouse so young." Young. At 71, I was apparently young to be widowed. I was hoping to schedule a tour. Of course. Though I should mention your son's already put down a deposit to hold the room. Such a thoughtful young man. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. A deposit? $5,000. Fully refundable if you decide not to stay with us, of course, but it secures your place until you're ready. $5,000. Money they'd apparently had readily available. Money they'd spent without asking me, without my knowledge, while I'd been grieving. "What's the monthly fee?" I asked. $4,500 for the basic package. That includes meals, housekeeping, and access to all our activities. Medical care and personal assistance are extra, naturally. $4,500 a month. $54,000 a year. They expected my house to cover 18 months of care, but at these prices, it would barely last 15. And when the money ran out? What happens to residents who can't pay? I asked. Well, that's a difficult situation. We work with families to find solutions. Sometimes that means applying for Medicaid, moving to a state facility. She trailed off diplomatically. A state facility. The kind of place where you waited to die among strangers who saw you as a burden, not a person. I'll need to think about this, I said. Of course. But I should mention, we have a waiting list. Your son was very concerned about securing your spot. Very concerned. I wondered what else Logan had been concerned about. That evening, I drove to Sunset Manor myself. The building was impressive. Modern brick and glass, manicured grounds, a fountain in the circular driveway. It looked expensive, exclusive. The kind of place that would appeal to someone like Debbie, who cared about appearances. I parked across the street and watched the residents who ventured outside. They moved slowly, carefully, like people walking on ice. Some used walkers or wheelchairs. Others sat on benches staring at nothing. One woman kept calling for her daughter, but no one answered. These were the people Logan saw as my peers, the people he thought I belonged with. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Denny's on Route 9 at 8 p.m. Come alone. F. Frank." 24 hours, and he'd already found something. Denny's was nearly empty. Just a few truckers and shift workers grabbing late meals. Frank sat in a corner booth, a manila folder beside his coffee cup. He looked grim. "You're not going to like this," he said, as I slid into the opposite seat. "Tell me." He opened the folder, revealing bank statements, property records, and what looked like construction contracts. "Your son's in trouble. Big trouble. He's been using his construction business to launder money from a development deal that went bad. The investors are connected to some very unpleasant people." My blood turned to ice. What kind of people? The kind who break legs first and ask questions later. Logan owes them $3 million. $3 million. The number was so large it felt abstract, meaningless. But his business is leveraged to the hilt. He's been robbing Peter to pay Paul for the last year, taking on new projects to fund old ones. It's a house of cards, and it's about to collapse. Frank pulled out more papers. He's borrowed against everything. His house, his business, even his retirement accounts. But here's the interesting part. He's been making inquiries about your house. Had it appraised 3 times in the last 6 months. While Harold was dying. Gets worse. He's already got a buyer lined up. Cash offer, quick closing. The sale would net him about $400,000 after the mortgage. $400,000. Enough to buy himself time, but not enough to solve his problems. There's more, Frank continued. Sunset Manor. Your son doesn't just know the director, he owns a piece of the place. 20% stake, bought with a loan secured by your house as collateral. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Logan would sell my house, use the proceeds to pay down his debts, and collect monthly payments from me for as long as I lived. When I ran out of money, he'd still have his stake in the facility to fall back on. I'm not a mother to him, I said quietly. I'm a business opportunity. I'm sorry, Audrey. I wish I had better news. I sat in silence, processing the magnitude of my son's betrayal. This wasn't just about convenience or concern for my welfare. This was about money, desperation, and the kind of choices people made when they were backed into a corner. There's something else, Frank said, his voice gentler now. Your mother's ring? The one you inherited? I touched my finger instinctively. What about it? It's worth more than you think. A lot more. I had a jeweler friend take a look at the photos you sent. That's not just a 2-carat diamond. It's a rare cut. Excellent clarity. Probably worth $60,000 to $70,000 at auction. $60,000. More than Logan thought I had in the world. What do you want to do? Frank asked. I thought about Harold. About the promises we'd made to each other. About the life we'd built in that house. I thought about Logan as a little boy. The way he'd looked at me with such trust, such love. Then I thought about the woman calling for her daughter at Sunset Manor, and the coldness in my son's voice when he'd called me a burden. I want to fight, I said. Frank smiled for the first time since I'd walked in. Your mother would be proud. What do we do first? First, you don't give them an answer about the nursing home. Not yet. Let them sweat. Second, we document everything. Every conversation, every financial transaction, every lie they tell. And then? Frank's smile turned predatory. Then we show them what happens when you try to con a woman who raised you better than this. I drove home through the quiet streets, my mind racing with plans and possibilities. For the first time in months, I felt alive, dangerous, ready to remind my son exactly who he was dealing with. The house welcomed me with its familiar creaks and shadows. I made tea in the kitchen, sitting at the table where Harold and I had shared so many meals, so many conversations, where we'd planned our future and mourned our losses. Logan wanted to erase all of it, turn it into money to solve his problems. But he'd forgotten something important. He'd forgotten that I was Martha Brown's daughter, raised to fight for what was mine, and I was just getting started. Friday morning arrived with the weight of a funeral shroud. Logan called at exactly 9 o'clock, his voice carrying that forced cheerfulness I'd learned to recognize as desperation disguised. Morning, Mom. Just checking in about Sunset Manor. They need our answer today. Our answer. As if he had any right to the decision. I'm still thinking, I said, stirring my coffee with deliberate slowness. Frank had coached me. Let them reveal themselves. Give them rope. Mom, you can't keep putting this off. The room won't wait forever. No, I suppose it won't. I paused, letting the silence stretch. Logan, I have a question. Why did you put down a deposit without asking me? The silence on his end lasted 3 heartbeats too long. I wanted to secure your spot. These places fill up fast. $5,000 is a lot of money to spend without consulting me. It's refundable, he said quickly. And Mom, I know this is hard, but we need to be practical. The house sale will cover your expenses for 15 months, I interrupted. At $4,500 a month, the house money will last 15 months, not 18 like you said. Another pause. I could almost hear him calculating, wondering how I'd done the math. We'll figure something out, he said. Maybe there are programs? Medicaid, I said. After I'm broke, I'd qualify for Medicaid. Then I'd have to move to whatever facility accepts it. Mom, you're getting ahead of yourself. Am I? Or am I finally catching up? The sharpness in my voice surprised us both. Logan's breathing changed, became more careful. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not as helpless as you think I am. I never said you were helpless. I said you needed help. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you've made a lot of decisions for someone who supposedly just needs help. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but what's gotten into me is that my husband died, and my son immediately started treating me like a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. The words hung in the air like smoke. When Logan spoke again, his voice had hardened. Fine. You want to have this conversation? Let's have it. You're 71 years old, living alone in a house that's falling apart, with no income except Social Security. What exactly is your plan? How exactly are you going to take care of yourself? I have options. Like what? I thought about my mother's ring, about Frank's investigation, about all the cards I held that Logan didn't know about. That's my business. Your business? Mom, I'm your son. I'm trying to help you. No, I said quietly. You're trying to help yourself. The line went dead. I set the phone down and waited. It rang again within 30 seconds. I'm coming over, Logan said without preamble. We need to talk face to face. No. I said no. If you want to talk to me, we can meet somewhere public, neutral ground. Mom, this is ridiculous. I'm not the enemy here. Aren't you? Another long pause. Fine. Cooper's Diner. 1 hour. The line went dead again. I finished my coffee, then walked through the house one more time, seeing it with new eyes. The kitchen where Harold had taught Logan to scramble eggs. The living room where we'd opened Christmas presents. The backyard where Logan had taken his first steps. Where Harold had pushed him on the tire swing until the boy was dizzy with laughter. All of it marked for sale to pay Logan's debts. I drove to Cooper's Diner 30 minutes early, choosing a booth with a clear view of the parking lot. When Logan arrived, he wasn't alone. Debbie sat in the passenger seat of his BMW, her face a mask of barely controlled irritation. They argued for several minutes before Logan got out alone. He looked older than his 32 years as he slid into the booth across from me. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually perfect hair showed signs of stress-induced disorder. Debbie wanted to come in, he said. I'm sure she did. Mom, I don't understand what's happening here. 2 days ago, you were grieving Dad and seemed ready to accept help. Now you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Are you? The question hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale, then flushed red. What kind of question is that? A fair one. Are you a criminal, Logan? Of course not. I'm a businessman. I build things. I provide jobs. You launder money. The words fell between us like stones. Logan's mouth opened and closed without sound. His eyes darted toward the window, toward Debbie waiting in the car, then back to me. I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the $3 million. I know about the investors. I know about the construction business that's really a shell company. Logan's breathing became shallow, rapid. You don't understand. It's complicated. Business is complicated. Not that complicated. You take dirty money, run it through fake construction projects, and keep a percentage. Until the project went bad and left you owing people who break legs first and ask questions later. How could you possibly... Logan stopped himself, his eyes narrowing. You hired someone. A private investigator. My mother taught me to be prepared for anything, even betrayal by my own child. Betrayal? Logan's voice cracked. I'm trying to save your life. Do you have any idea what these people are capable of? If they think you know about the business, if they think you're a liability, then maybe you shouldn't have involved me. I didn't have a choice. The words exploded from him, loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. He lowered his voice, leaning across the table. The house was the only asset I could access quickly. The only thing not already leveraged or frozen by the investigation. Investigation? Logan's face went gray. The FBI is looking into the development deal. They haven't connected it to me yet, but it's only a matter of time. I need to pay these people back before everything falls apart. So you decided to sacrifice me. I decided to protect my family. Debbie, the kids. I'm your family too. You're one person. They're my wife and children, my future. The coldness in his voice was worse than any slap. I stared at this stranger wearing my son's face. This man who could calculate the relative worth of human lives like a business transaction. And what about when the house money runs out? I asked. What about when I can't pay Sunset Manor anymore? Logan couldn't meet my eyes. We'll figure something out. No, you've already figured it out. Medicaid, a state facility, Or maybe you're hoping I won't last that long. Don't say that. Why not? It's the truth, isn't it? This whole plan works better if I die before becoming a financial burden. Logan's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my lap after nightmares, who'd cried when he'd accidentally stepped on a butterfly. But it was just a moment. I never wanted this, he whispered. I never wanted any of this. But you chose it anyway. I made some bad decisions, got in over my head. But I can fix this, Mom. I just need time. Time you plan to buy with my house. It's just a house. It's my life. 47 years of marriage. 30 years of memories. Your childhood home. Childhood is over. This is about survival. I studied his face, looking for any trace of the boy I'd raised, the man I'd hoped he'd become. All I saw was desperation and the kind of moral flexibility that came from too many small compromises. You're right, I said finally. Childhood is over. And so is this conversation. I stood to leave, but Logan grabbed my wrist. Mom, wait. You can't just walk away from this. These people don't care about you. If they think you're a threat, then I guess you should have thought about that before you put my name on documents as collateral. Logan's grip tightened. You signed those papers willingly. You wanted to help with my business. I co-signed one loan. For $50,000. For equipment. Not for this. The courts won't see it that way. Your signature is on the paperwork. If this goes bad, you're liable too. The threat was clear. If I didn't cooperate, Logan would let me go down with him. I looked at his hand on my wrist, at the desperate calculation in his eyes, and felt something inside me die. Let me go, I said quietly. Mom, let me go. Logan released my wrist, but his eyes held mine. I'm trying to save us both. Can't you see that? I see a man who's forgotten what family means. I walked out of the diner without looking back. Debbie got out of the car as I passed, her mouth opening to speak, but I kept walking. Let her deal with the wreckage of her husband's choices. I had my own battles to fight. Back home, I called Frank. How did it go? He asked. He confirmed everything. And Frank? He threatened me. Said I'd go down with him because my signature is on some loan documents. Interesting. Tells me he's more desperate than I thought. Also tells me we have him exactly where we want him. What do you mean? I mean it's time to play our cards. All of them. Are you ready to do this, Audrey? Because once we start, there's no going back. I thought about Logan's grip on my wrist, about the coldness in his voice when he'd weighed my life against his family's future, about the years Harold and I had sacrificed so our son could have every opportunity, every advantage. I'm ready, I said. What do we do first? Frank's laugh was sharp as broken glass. First, we give Logan exactly what he wants. We tell him you'll sign the papers for Sunset Manor. What? Trust me, Audrey. Sometimes the best way to win a war is to let your enemy think they've already won. I hung up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden Harold had tended with such care. The roses were still blooming, defying the October chill. Stubborn, resilient, beautiful. Just like their gardener had taught me to be. Logan wanted to sell my house, my memories, my life. He thought he held all the cards, that I was just a helpless old woman who'd roll over and accept whatever scraps he threw me. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. I called Logan that evening while the October sun bled orange through my kitchen windows. Frank's strategy felt like swallowing poison, but I trusted my mother's judgment about him. Logan, I've been thinking about our conversation. Mom, relief flooded his voice. I'm so glad you called. I've been worried sick. Worried about his money, more likely. I want to see Sunset Manor. Tomorrow. That's wonderful. I'll pick you up at... I'll drive myself. I want to see it through my own eyes, not yours. A pause. Of course. Whatever makes you comfortable. What time works for you? 10 in the morning. And Logan? I'll need you to come with me. To explain the financial arrangements. Absolutely. I'll meet you there. After hanging up, I sat in Harold's chair and stared at the photographs lining the mantel. Our wedding day, Logan's birth, family Christmases when love had been enough. When had money become more important than everything else? The next morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood. I dressed carefully, my good Navy suit, the one I'd worn to job interviews decades ago. Professional. Serious. The kind of woman who asked questions and demanded answers. Sunset Manor looked even more impressive in daylight. The circular drive was crowded with luxury cars dropping off visitors for Saturday brunch. I parked my 15-year-old Honda between a Mercedes and a BMW, feeling like an imposter. Logan was waiting in the lobby, his face carefully arranged in a mask of concern. He'd brought flowers, yellow roses, my supposed favorites. Harold would have known I preferred white. "Mom, you look wonderful." He kissed my cheek, and for a moment, muscle memory made me want to hug him. Then I remembered his grip on my wrist yesterday, the calculation in his eyes. "Let's get this over with," I said. James Foster, the director, was exactly what I'd expected. Silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of practiced warmth that came with a hefty paycheck. His office overlooked the garden, where residents sat on benches like expensive lawn ornaments. "Mrs. Brown, I'm so sorry for your loss. Logan has told me wonderful things about you." I'm sure he had. "Mr. Foster, I'd like to understand the financial commitment here. The real costs, not just the basic package." Foster's smile never wavered. "Of course. Transparency is so important in these decisions." He pulled out a leather folder, spreading papers across his desk like a dealer laying out cards. The numbers were staggering. $4,500 for basic care, but everything else was extra. Physical therapy, $800 a month. Medication management, $300. Special dietary needs, $200. Transportation to medical appointments, $50 each way. "What about when residents need more intensive care?" I asked. "We have several levels of service. Memory care is $6,800 monthly. Full nursing care is $9,200. Logan shifted uncomfortably. These numbers weren't part of his plan. "And if someone can't pay?" I pressed. Foster's warmth dimmed slightly. "We work with families to explore options. Sometimes that means transferring to a Medicaid-approved facility. Such as? Shady Oaks is our partner facility. Lovely place, very affordable." I'd driven past Shady Oaks. Institutional green walls, broken playground equipment, the smell of disinfectant that couldn't quite mask decay. The kind of place where dignity went to die. "Can we see the room?" I asked. Foster's smile returned full force. "Absolutely." Logan selected a wonderful suite. The room was pleasant enough. Floral wallpaper, matching furniture, a small kitchenette with a refrigerator the size of a dorm room's. The window overlooked the parking lot. Not the garden, not the fountain. The parking lot. "The premium suites have garden views," Foster said, noting my expression. "But they're quite a bit more expensive." "How much more?" $6,800 monthly for a garden suite. I walked to the window, watching residents walk slowly along designated paths. A woman in her 80s stopped to rest on every bench, her face vacant. Another sat in a wheelchair, staring at nothing. "What activities do you offer?" I asked. "Oh, we have a wonderful program. Bingo on Tuesdays, craft time on Thursdays, movie nights on weekends. And of course, there's the dining room for socialization during meals." Logan jumped in. "Mom, you love crafts. Remember how you used to knit?" I hadn't knitted in 15 years, but Logan wouldn't know that. He'd stopped paying attention to my life long before Harold got sick. "The dining room serves meals at set times," Foster continued. "Breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, dinner at 5:30. The kitchen closes at 6, but residents can keep snacks in their rooms. Set meal times. Like a prison. No more lazy Sunday breakfasts reading the paper. No more midnight cups of tea when insomnia struck. Everything regulated, controlled, decided by someone else." "What's the policy on visitors?" I asked. "Family is welcome anytime between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. Other visitors need to be approved and accompanied by family members." Other visitors. Friends I'd made over 71 years of living would need Logan's permission to see me. "Can residents leave the facility?" "With family escort, certainly. We do ask that you sign out and inform the desk when you'll return. Safety protocol." Sign out. Like a teenager asking permission to go to the movies. We toured the common areas next. The dining room was elegant, filled with round tables where residents sat in assigned seats. Conversations were muted, polite. No one laughed. The craft room held a dozen elderly women gluing plastic flowers onto picture frames under the watchful eye of a 20-something activities director who spoke to them like children. In the garden, I stopped beside an elderly man feeding birds from a bench. "How long have you been here?" I asked. He looked up with rheumy eyes. 3 years next month. My daughter thought I needed supervision after I left the stove on. "Do you like it here?" He was quiet for so long I thought he hadn't heard. Then, "I miss my workshop. Had a wood shop in my basement for 40 years. Made toys for the grandkids, furniture for the house. They donated all my tools when I moved here." His voice carried the hollow tone of someone who'd stopped fighting. "The staff is very kind," he added quickly, glancing toward Foster. 3 meals a day, clean sheets twice a week. Can't complain." But his eyes told a different story. The story of a man who'd been convinced his life was too much trouble for the people who supposedly loved him. Back in Foster's office, Logan was fidgeting with the paperwork. "What questions do you have, Mrs. Brown?" Foster asked. "Just one. When can I move in?" Logan's face lit up. "Mom, that's wonderful. I knew you'd see this was the right choice." "Monday," Foster said. "We can have everything ready by Monday if you'd like." "Perfect." I turned to Logan. "I'll need help with the paperwork, the financial arrangements." "Of course, whatever you need." Foster spread more documents across his desk. Admission papers, medical history forms, financial disclosure statements. Page after page of fine print that would sign away my autonomy in exchange for the illusion of security. "The initial payment covers the first month and a security deposit," Foster explained. $6,500 total. Logan pulled out his checkbook without hesitation. "I'll take care of it." "Actually," I said, "I'd prefer to handle this myself. It's important that I maintain some independence." Logan's pen froze halfway to the paper. "Mom, you don't need to—" "I want to." I pulled out my own checkbook, the one Logan didn't know about. The one connected to the account where I'd deposited my mother's ring money 3 days ago. It's my life, my decision, my money. Foster accepted my check with professional indifference, but Logan was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "Mom, where did you get—" "Your father and I weren't completely helpless," I said. "We had some savings you didn't know about." It wasn't technically a lie. The ring had been savings, in a way. Logan's jaw tightened. "We should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss. I'm a grown woman making a grown-up decision. But the house sale can wait until I'm settled here. No rush now that I have my immediate expenses covered." Logan's carefully laid plans were crumbling, and I could see him struggling to adapt. The house sale was supposed to be immediate, necessary, urgent. Now I'd removed the urgency. "How much do you have in this account?" he asked. "Enough." I signed the admission papers with a steady hand. "Mr. Foster, I'll see you Monday morning." "Wonderful. We'll have your suite ready." Logan followed me to the parking lot, his composure finally cracking. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" "Language, Logan. Don't language me. Where did that money come from?" "That's none of your business." "None of my business? I'm your son. I'm trying to help you." "No, you're trying to help yourself. But I've decided to make this easier for everyone. I'll move into Sunset Manor. You can stop worrying about me and we can all get on with our lives." Logan grabbed my arm, just like at the diner. "This isn't what we planned." "What you planned? I was never part of the planning, remember? You can't afford this place long-term. You know that, right? Whatever money you have, it won't last. Then I guess I'll have to be very careful with it." Logan's grip tightened. "Mom, those papers you signed for my business loan. If you don't cooperate—" "Are you threatening me, Logan?" He dropped my arm like it was on fire. "I'm trying to protect you." "From what?" "From making a mistake that ruins both our lives." I looked at this man who'd emerged from my body, who I'd nursed through childhood illnesses and teenage heartbreaks, who'd become a stranger capable of using my love as a weapon against me. "Goodbye, Logan," I said. "I'll call when I'm settled." I drove home through streets that seemed sharper, more vivid. Frank's plan was working perfectly. Logan thought he'd won, that I was surrendering to his vision of my future. He had no idea what was really happening. At home, I called Frank from Harold's chair. "How did it go?" he asked. Like clockwork. Logan thinks I'm cooperating. He has no idea about the ring money, and he's completely thrown by my independence. Good. He'll be sloppy now, overconfident. That's when people make mistakes. What's next? Now we wait. Let him think he's gotten away with it. Meanwhile, I'll be documenting everything. The financial records, the nursing home connection, all of it. When we're ready, we'll have enough evidence to bury him. And the FBI investigation he mentioned? Frank's laugh was cold. Oh, Audrey, that's the best part. I may have made a few anonymous phone calls about Logan's business practices. Just civic duty, you understand? I understood perfectly. My mother had chosen her allies well. How long? I asked. Give it 2 weeks. Let him get comfortable. Then we spring the trap. 2 weeks. 14 days to let Logan believe he'd successfully disposed of his inconvenient mother. 14 days to document his relief, his plans, his complete disregard for the woman who'd given him life. After hanging up, I walked through my house one more time. The kitchen where I'd taught Logan to cook. The living room where we'd read bedtime stories. The garden where Harold had pushed him on the swing until they were both dizzy with laughter. In 2 weeks, Logan would learn that some things were more important than money, and I would teach him exactly what happened when you forgot that love was supposed to protect, not exploit. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. 2 weeks at Sunset Manor taught me everything I needed to know about institutional death. Not the quick kind. The slow erosion of dignity that began the moment you signed away your autonomy and ended when someone else decided you'd lived long enough. My suite overlooked the parking lot, as promised. Every morning, I watched families arrive for visits, their faces careful masks of duty and guilt. Every evening, I watched them leave, relief visible in their quickened steps. I played the part perfectly. Attended craft time with Jonas Shue, who'd been a federal judge before her daughter decided she needed supervision. Sat through bingo with Rosa Pratt Kelly, a former surgeon who now struggled to remember what year it was. Ate dinner at the prescribed time with people who'd been teachers, engineers, mothers, fathers, all reduced to room numbers and medication schedules. Logan visited twice. Both times he stayed exactly 20 minutes, checked his phone constantly, and seemed delighted that I was adjusting so well. Debbie came once, spent 15 minutes admiring the decor, and left without asking how I felt about anything. They thought they'd won. They thought I was safely contained. No longer their responsibility, no longer a threat to their carefully constructed life. They were wrong. Frank called on Thursday evening. It's time, he said. I've got everything we need. How bad is it? Worse than we thought. The FBI raided his office this morning. They found evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, and fraud going back 3 years. Logan's in federal custody. I felt nothing. No surprise, no satisfaction, no maternal anguish, just the cold emptiness where love used to live. What about his family? Debbie's hired a lawyer. The house is in both their names, so she might keep it. But Logan's assets are frozen. His stake in Sunset Manor, his business accounts, everything. And my house? Still yours. The loan documents Logan used were forged. Your signature was copied from legitimate papers, but the originals have discrepancies. My contact at the DA's office says they'll be thrown out. Of course they would. Logan hadn't just betrayed me. He'd been sloppy about it. Arrogant. He'd assumed I was too old, too trusting, too broken by grief to fight back. There's more, Frank continued. Sunset Manor is in financial trouble. Without Logan's investment and with the FBI investigation, they're hemorrhaging money. They'll probably close within 6 months. What happens to the residents? Transferred to other facilities, hopefully better ones. I thought about Joan, Rosa, the man who missed his woodshop. Maybe they'd find places that remembered they were people, not problems. Audrey, there's something else. Debbie called here looking for you. She's desperate. I'm sure she is. She wants to meet, says it's important. I considered this. Debbie, who'd never called me mom, who'd treated me like an inconvenient piece of furniture, who'd pushed Logan toward every cruel decision while keeping her own hands clean. Set it up, I said. Tomorrow. Somewhere public. Frank chose a coffee shop downtown. The kind of place where Debbie would feel exposed, uncomfortable. I arrived early, claiming a table by the window where I could watch her arrive. She looked terrible. Designer clothes hung loose on her frame. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles, and her hands shook as she ordered coffee she didn't drink. "Audrey," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thank God you're all right." "All right," as if I were the one in trouble. "Debbie." I kept my voice neutral, giving her nothing. "This is all such a misunderstanding. Logan never meant for any of this to happen. He was trying to protect everyone. By laundering money for criminals?" She flinched. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. The business opportunity seemed legitimate. When it went bad, Logan panicked. He made some poor decisions. Poor decisions. Like forging my signature, like threatening me, like calculating my worth in dollars and dismissing the remainder. What do you want, Debbie?" "I want to help you. This place," she gestured vaguely toward Sunset Manor. "You shouldn't be here. It's not right for someone like you. Someone like me." The phrase had new meaning now that Logan wasn't there to pay the bills. "Where should I be?" "Home. Your real home. Logan never should have pushed you to sell it. I tried to tell him, but he wouldn't listen." Debbie's voice cracked with what might have been genuine emotion. He was so scared about the money situation. He wasn't thinking clearly. The revisionist history was masterful. Suddenly, Logan had acted alone. Suddenly, Debbie had been my advocate all along. "He forged my signature on loan documents," I said quietly. "That's not poor judgment. That's fraud. The lawyers say that's a misunderstanding, a clerical error. Logan thought you'd already signed." "Stop." The word came out harder than I'd intended. "Just stop. I was there, Debbie. I heard every word, saw every look. I know exactly what Logan thought of me." Debbie's composure cracked. "He's in federal prison, Audrey. My husband is in federal prison, and my children are asking why Daddy doesn't come home. Do you have any idea what this is doing to our family? Do you have any idea what it did to mine? You're still his mother. Doesn't that mean anything?" I studied her face, looking for any trace of the woman who'd spent 8 years treating me like a burden. All I saw was desperation wearing the mask of someone who'd finally realized that family might be worth more than money. "It meant everything," I said, "until he decided I was worth more dead than alive." Debbie went pale. "He never said that. He didn't have to. The math was clear enough. Nursing home costs, insurance payouts, inheritance timelines. Logan had it all figured out. You don't understand the pressure he was under. These people, the ones he owed money to, they made threats. Against me. Against the kids. So he decided to sacrifice me instead. He thought you'd be safe at Sunset Manor, protected." "Protected from what? Living?" Debbie couldn't meet my eyes. "What do you want me to say? That he was wrong?" "Fine. He was wrong. But he's paying for it now. We're all paying for it." "Good." The word hung between us like a blade. Debbie's face went from pale to gray. "I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe it took me this long to say it." I leaned forward, letting her see the steel that had taken 71 years to forge. "Your husband used my grief to manipulate me. He forged my signature to steal my house. He threatened to frame me for his crimes if I didn't cooperate, and you helped him every step of the way. You found Sunset Manor. You calculated the costs. You made sure I felt unwanted, unwelcome, unnecessary. You turned my own son against me." Debbie was crying now, quiet tears that smeared her makeup. I was trying to help. "I thought you'd be happier somewhere with people your own age, activities, structure. You thought I'd be convenient. Out of sight, out of mind, and no longer your responsibility. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you asked what I wanted? When did you last consider that I might have opinions about my own life?" Debbie had no answer because there was no answer. She'd never seen me as a person worth consulting. "The lawyers think they can get Logan a reduced sentence," she said finally, "if he cooperates with the investigation, testifies against the other people involved. But he needs character witnesses, family support." And there it was. The real reason for this meeting. "You want me to help him. You're his mother. I was his mother. Now I'm just another victim of his crimes. Audrey, please. I know we haven't always. I know I could have been better, more welcoming. But Logan loves you. He's made mistakes, but he loves you. Love doesn't forge signatures. Love doesn't threaten elderly women. Love doesn't calculate the cash value of a human life. Debbie was sobbing openly now, drawing stares from other customers. What about my children? They need their father. I can't raise them alone. You won't be alone. You'll have your family, your friends, your support network. All the things you made sure I didn't have. I'll lose the house. Everything Logan built, everything we worked for. Everything he stole, you mean. Please? Debbie reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled away. I'll do anything. I'll sign papers giving you back your house free and clear. I'll apologize publicly. You'll what? Suddenly develop a conscience? Learn to see me as a human being instead of an inconvenience? Yes, if that's what it takes. I stood up, gathering my purse with hands that were perfectly steady. It's too late for that, Debbie. Audrey, wait. I spent 71 years being the woman everyone else needed me to be. You're Logan's mother, Harold's wife, the good woman who sacrificed and smiled and never complained. I looked down at her tear-streaked face. I'm done being that woman. What does that mean? It means Logan made his choices. Now he gets to live with the consequences, just like I've had to live with mine. I walked away from her broken pleas, out into the November afternoon that felt crisp and clean. Free. Frank was waiting by my car, his expression carefully neutral. How did it go? Exactly as expected. She wants me to save Logan, to be the forgiving mother who puts family above justice. And I told her the truth, that some betrayals can't be forgiven. Some wounds can't be healed. Frank nodded slowly. Your mother would be proud. My mother understood that love isn't unconditional. That being family doesn't give you the right to destroy someone. What's next? I looked back toward the coffee shop, where Debbie was still sitting at our table, probably planning her next appeal. Next, I go home, to my real home, and I live whatever years I have left on my own terms. Logan's sentencing is next month. I won't be there. The prosecution might want you to testify, as a victim. I'll think about it, but I already knew I wouldn't. Logan's punishment was the justice system's responsibility now. Mine was simpler, cleaner. I was going to live well. I was going to be happy. I was going to prove that a 71-year-old woman could build a life worth living, with or without the approval of people who'd never deserved her love in the first place. That evening, I moved out of Sunset Manor. The staff was professional, understanding. No one asked questions about my sudden departure. I drove through the familiar streets to my real home, the house Logan had tried to steal. Frank had already had the locks changed, the security system updated. Harold's garden was overgrown, but salvageable. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The kitchen where I'd learned to cook. The living room where I'd raised a son who'd grown up to forget what family meant. The bedroom where Harold had died believing our child would take care of me. But Harold had been wrong about a lot of things. I made tea in my own kitchen, sat at my own table, and watched the sunset through my own windows. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. Logan would serve his time. Debbie would rebuild her life or not. The children would grow up with whatever truth their mother chose to tell them. And I would be free to discover who Audrey Brown really was when she stopped being everyone else's idea of what she should be. The phone rang once that evening. Logan's number. I let it go to voicemail. I never listened to the message. I was done listening to people who'd forgotten how to love without conditions, how to give without taking, how to honor the people who'd sacrificed everything to give them life. I was done being anyone's convenient victim. The war was over. I had won.